Tonight's Four Corners sees RN Breakfast host Patricia Carvelis look at the care for the increasing number of young people struggling with their gender. She digs into the debate over whether medical interventions, including puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, should be administered to young people.
There's a bitter war underway over the control of young people's bodies.
The body that I'm in, I don't want to be in this anymore.
She was born with a boy's body and she has a girl's heart and mind.
Transgender kids are at the centre of a polarising debate over medical intervention to help deal with their distress. The recognised treatment in Australia includes drugs to pause puberty.
It's not one session and you get hormones. That's a total misconception about what we do.
Opponents warn medication is dangerous. Do you think there's ever a case for an adolescent to transition medically?
My personal opinion is that it would be good to disallow the prescription of puberty blockers to children with gender dysphoria.
Now the conflict is being played out in hospitals, and at the centre is Westmead Children's in Sydney.
Well, Patricia Carvelis joins us now. Morning, Patricia. Westmead Children's Hospital then, what's happening there?
Well, there is a huge fight over gender-affirming care going on at Westmead Children's Hospital. Just to be clear, gender-affirming care is a model that Australia still uses, although it is being wound back in different parts across the world, including the United States, where 20 states have banned it, in the UK, where puberty blockers are now being restricted just for clinical trials. But in Australia, we continue to use gender-affirming care in these multidisciplinary clinics where there is a full psychological assessment, there are many health workers who work with young people, and they are able to go on puberty blockers that pause puberty or cross-sex hormones later, potentially, which allow them to go through a puberty in the gender that they identify with. But at the Westmead Children's Hospital, essentially we've been able to establish through freedom of information requests that there are only 3 new patients that they've seen all year, which is incredible given the size of Sydney and the demand for services. And that got us, of course, wondering what is actually happening here. And we were able to establish that there is a very controversial research project which has been published out of that hospital around gender-affirming care, which has, if you like, led to a crisis of confidence of people. There have been resignations. We've spoken to a whistleblower who worked in the service. Her name is Anna, who worked as a psychologist, who talks about the level of distress inside the service because of the research, parent concerns, feeling like they couldn't deliver a model which would actually help the young people they were seeing. So it's led to really a really big slowdown in their ability to help the young people coming to them. Now, this amid a much broader national and international discussion about what is best for children who are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Our piece also speaks to critics, and there are critics who think that the medical pathway is not right for young people. They have been advocating for something that they call watchful waiting. Now, to be clear, watchful waiting is something that many experts say is not right and dangerous, but the proponents of watchful waiting say that it's important to just hold back, work on talk therapy and exploration and not intervene medically, that you should allow a young person to go through puberty, even if it is distressing in their own born sex assigned at birth. And they're really pushing back, saying that some of these drugs like puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are not the right thing to do for young people. Now, the people who run these gender clinics who are in our story, particularly in Melbourne and Brisbane, say while research is evolving, that it's still a lifesaver for young people who come through their doors. But what we really revealed tonight is that this big international debate is very much being had in Australia as well. That it's not just kind of happening overseas, that it's happening in our own medical establishments.
What are the families who are affected by this thing, Patricia?
Well, that's been key for us, to actually centre the experience of young people. We have these abstract debates often which don't centre the young people who are desperate for some of this, these interventions, this help. And so we speak, for instance, to a 14-year-old trans girl, Brock, in Western Sydney, who talks about gender dysphoria and her own experience going through this. She's now about to start her 3rd dose of puberty blockers, and we explore what that looks like for her family and how difficult it was for them to go through the process. And there are heartbreaking stories in tonight's 4Corners episode, because for many families dealing with this is hard. This is not easy. This is very difficult for them. And we really wanted to share that experience with people who may not be across it.
As you mentioned, Patricia, the Westmead Children's Hospital is one of the ones central in your report. Were you able to speak to any staff, any managers there, or to get the health service perspective on what's happening?
We certainly tried. We were shut down. It was a hard story to bring to people, and so we have relied on whistleblowers, insiders who've talked to us about the attempts they've gone to try as frontline workers wanting to help young people to change processes internally, and they've hit, well, brick walls like we did. And so we did want to hear from the researchers of the controversial research, from the hospital itself. That's what balanced journalism is about. So we've sought other critics of gender-affirming care outside of that hospital who have spoken to us. We've been quite rigorous, but it has been really difficult. But it is the brave whistleblowers like Anna who spoke to us about what was going on internally, which I think is quite key to this story.
Patricia, thanks very much. It'll be a very interesting watch, and you can see that full report with Patricia tonight on 4Corners, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and any time, of course, on ABC iView.